Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change your life. Mitzvah Hashem. Miami Yehuda Atah, Tashin Lamed Ches, 1977 or 78. I'm not sure exactly what time of year it was. Probably was 77. So we were discussing that the first stage in getting to this level of Yehuda, which is acknowledgement, which is really bittul. We're going to discuss that later. First, we have to discuss how to get to Yehuda. And the way to get to Yehuda is Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, the brothers of Yehuda. So basically what we're doing is we're taking a pasuk, and like we learned in Yana Shiteres Chassidus, that we're taking a pasuk that on the pshat level is just talking about brothers. And we're bringing it to the depth of the understanding, which is the Chassidic understanding, the neshama of what it's trying to say. So through how do you get to Yehuda? What's Yehuda? Yehuda is not just a person, but Yehuda is a representation of an idea, of connection to Hashem on the deepest of levels. Now, in order to how to get to that level, you have to first start with Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. So we started talking about yesterday about Reuven. What's Reuven? Reuven is like it says that when he was born, Ki ra Hashem b'oini, Hashem saw. And Reuven is this level of connection to Hashem, which brings about a love through seeing. That when you see something, it's a deep level of connection. Because it can even be something that you saw that doesn't make much sense. But you saw it, so you can't argue. Yeah. And now we're going to discuss Shimon. So in this Chassidus Heritage series, it's page 23 at the bottom paragraph. Up to Shimon. B'china Shimon, wherever else you're learning it. B'china Shimon, level of Shimon, Hashem. Why was this Shimon called Shimon? Because Kishama, but Hashem heard. So Shimon is about hearing. Which is a level, it's interesting. It's a level lower technically, but you'll see. What's his level of Shimon? That he's Aveda, the person that works on themselves. In terms of Shimon, in terms of the level of Shimon, we remember the Aveda in terms of Ruvain is specifically in the first pasuk, first part of Shema, together with it, but with the idea of Ashkacha Pratis, of paying attention to God's influence over every infinite and every detail of your life. What's Shimon? Shimon is the Shmiya, which is Hasagav, it's understanding. When you hear something, it's a lot less of an internalized experience. And it's like learning. It's not a level of seeing. Since when it comes to the level of Shimon, Shmiya, which is you're still distant from the idea, we're talking about Adam. It's like, for example, a person Hashemeya is a davar. He hears something that is told to him. But he himself, you didn't see it yourself. So when someone tells you something crazy that happens, you don't know what happened to me. Like a few weeks ago, I was walking home from shul and I saw some guy get a gun pulled on him. And I was literally there. Now that experience to me is something that, as much as I can explain to you, and I can talk to you about it, and I can tell people about it, what they experience from it is not the same as what I experienced. It just can't be the same. But you're only hearing it. I saw it. To see that experience is something, it's a lot more of an intense experience. So what? And therefore, therefore, the way you serve Hashem on the level of Shimon is it produces a level of yira, of fear. Or this is the second part of Krishma. Like we say in the Vahaya part, which is Vahayim Shemoya Tishmo, that you should and it'll be when you listen. You see again, it's Shmiya, it's listening, but it's producing the aura of Hashem. You should be careful to yourselves, pen yifta, lest that you'll turn yourselves away. Meaning, since the way you're connecting to godliness is on this level of Shmiya, if you listen, therefore the way you serve God on the level of Shimon is through a yira. So so we have, and we'll have to bring about this a little bit, and then we're going to talk about Levi. Hashem, it's a late start, so maybe we'll have to stop early. But so Shimon is the level of hearing. So what happens? So like we said, it's a much distant. The idea is like this: that when you work on the level of Shimon, it's the way you connect to Hashem is by thinking about Hashem, by thinking about it in terms of recognizing the distance. The Hashgacha Pratis, if you think about this, the Hashgacha Pratis is seeing how God is in your life. Shimon is understanding godliness and how vast God is. That produces a feeling of insignificance, of how distant I am, not distant on how God and I are totally incomparable. Just to say God and I is an oxymoron in essence. So Shimon is thinking about godliness in terms of God and what God is. That's like when you learn Chassidus, you talk different levels of God and understanding God. And like I say, like I think about it, when you talk, Chassidus makes God three-dimensional. Meaning without Chassidus, there's God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He. But it doesn't mean much. God just is this thing that's in the heavens. Chassidus discusses levels of God. It's not God doesn't have levels, Chas v'Shalom, but it's different ways of it's like if you look at the sun from a distance, it's a ball, it's yellow. But if you learn the science of the sun, you see how much details there are. And if you've seen a video of close to the sun, there's a lot of stuff happening over there. So too with God and godliness. And that's the level of Shimon, Shmiya. You're learning about godliness. Now, being that you're learning, it's not a level of Shmiya. You don't see God. God is not part of your life, like the Hashgacha Pratis, recognizing God in your life, but it's more understanding and learning God. And V'hayin Shemaya, this is Shmiya. So that produces a feeling of smallness, and which is ultimately brings out a yira. Whereas the Ruvain, which is the work of Shema, and recognizing that God is there, and specifically through the Isbeinus, specifically through Hashgacha Pratis, recognizing God, that's how He's interacting in your world and how you see Him doing His magic. And if you see that, if you don't see that, then it's a foraying for itself. But if you walk on it, you can see it. I shall see it, Baruch Hashem. And that's Reuven and Shimon. And then you come Levi. And remember, this is all the preface for Yehuda. So Yehuda is the highest of levels, and it needs these levels first. And what's Levi? What's Levi? He's al shem yelav ishelai. And what happened when Levi was born? Leah said, and now my husband will be attached to me. And how does this work in terms of Avodah? It's after you say Shema, the first two parts of Shema, which brings out the Avas Hashem and the Yiras Hashem, through recognizing the Hashgacha Pratis and through realizing how insignificant you are to God, and through learning and meditating about God, we say Emes V'Yatziv, the part after Shema. What do we say over there? We say V'Hadavar Hazer Aleinu, this thing on us. What's this thing? Hadavar Hazer Koyal Torah. This is Torah. Ki Alidei Torah. If it was true learning Torah, Nas Yilav Ishelai, we become attached. Torah helps us getting attached, as we're going to explain later. So basically what we're saying is the steps in the process to understand how to get to Yehuda, Atah, Yehuda, this level of acknowledgement of thanks to Hashem, and we're going to discuss more what that means. We have to first go through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Now, and what we discuss today is essentially what is that? What is the meaning of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi? And just again, and we'll stop here. Reuven is Re'iyah, it's recognizing Lakus. In simple English, is learning to see Hashgacha Pratis, is recognizing God's divine providence in our life, in our day-to-day actions. And we can see it in so many ways, and I could tell you in a different time, maybe like different ways I see it very clearly, and how a lot of things that happen to my life is all there. And once you see it in the general picture, you can start seeing it in the microcosm, in the small details. And then you have Reuven, and then you have Shimon, which is Shmiya, which is more of a distance, like V'haim Shemaya, which is seeing, which is the hearing of Elikus. It's not like the seeing, and it's through learning about godliness and having that understanding of godliness, which produces a feeling of yira, of awe, of smallness in front of God. And then you have Levi, which is connecting to God, which is through learning his Torah. And tomorrow we're going to discuss all these things, how they bring, how they apply into the world at large, and how they bring to Yehuda. To be continued tomorrow.
Okay.
This share is sponsored for Fush Lema for Mira Gedalia Ben Chana Leah.